All right, we are back with it is Tuesday at 12 o'clock, Planning with a Purpose podcast. Um, welcome. We are joined here today with myself, Alyssa Lyon, and Muffy Mendoza. Muffy, how you doing this week? It's only
I'm
Tuesday
good.
week.
Thank you for asking. How you doing, Alyssa?
I'm moving along. I like that little transition from summer to fall. So I've been enjoying the nice little sunshine and the crisp weather.
Mhm.
Getting my boots and my jean jacket ready.
All
And
right.
today we also have a guest with us, Lance Harrell of the Master Builders Association. He is the director of workforce development and diversity, equity, and inclusion. How are you doing,
I'm
Lance?
doing good on this rainy Tuesday.
Yeah,
Thank you for
yeah.
asking.
I'm so excited to see you here. Lance and I first connected at a summer of engagement event that was held at the end of the summer by the Green Building Alliance. So I'm happy that we can keep these connections going. This is what the comprehensive plan is about. If you are here with us on Tuesday at 12, that means you are here with the Planning with a Purpose podcast with myself and Muffy Mendoza. It is a weekly live stream hosted every Tuesday at 12, where we bring city leaders, everyday residents, and thought partners to the table to break down Pittsburgh's comprehensive plan. We share stories from across communities and highlight why inclusive city planning matters for the future. You can stream live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and every episode invites listeners to learn, engage, and imagine a sustainable, thriving Pittsburgh one conversation at a time. I'm so happy to have Lance here. Lance, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit about the Master Builders Association if folks don't know,
Okay.
and how you wound up in doing workforce development and on the DEI side.
Okay. Born and raised in Pittsburgh.
Okay,
I
what part?
graduated. Grad, hmm?
What part?
I lived over in Beachview, so I grew up in the lived in between the Hill District and I grew up in Beachview. So I graduated from Bashir High School. Back in the day, of course, it was Bashir Bullets, and now it's the Bulls.
Whoop whoop! I just had to tell my son that our mascot was a bullet, and he said, "Why?"
See, it's hard to try to find something with that logo back in the day, but I still have some old photos of the Bullets, right? So,
Yeah.
but still once again came out of school '88, born and raised in Pittsburgh. So after being in Pittsburgh, you understand the community, the background, the history of Pittsburgh. But did a few things. Went to CCAC, graduated from Point Park. Did a few odd jobs. One of my crazy experience growing up was I was a substitute teacher for a period of time. So I definitely understand the challenges of teachers. I was at Kappa Elementary, Kappa, Bashir High School, and also King Elementary.
Were you
Um,
at Kappa when it was in East Slip? Was it when it was in Homewood or Kappa downtown?
Kappa downtown.
Okay.
So I was a teacher for probably about 4 to 6 months. Honestly, I did like education. Really, you can see how you kind of help mold and guide the young minds. But I just didn't have that much patience to make it a full-time position. But I got into the corporate field. One thing led to the other, and before I came into this role here at Master Builders, I was working on the Lower Hill project for about a year. One thing led from the Lower Hill to working with Master Builders, and once again, I'm the director of workforce development, diversity and inclusion for the Master Builders Association. MBA, we are a construction trade group that's been established since 1886. The organization was created to really kind of help build and promote the best interests for the contractors in this area. Since then, we've grown. Right now, we have about 300 members with about 37 general contractors and 112 specialty contractors. And our other members are affiliate members. They could be anything from engineering to an architect firm, a bonding insurance company. But collectively, all of our members do about 80% of all the commercial construction. One thing pretty unique about our general contractors and specialty contractors, they are signatory to the unions, which means they employ workers from all the local 16 union trades. So that's something very unique is that Pittsburgh is an old school union town, and majority of all the work is still driven by the union workforce. So my role with MBA is workforce, but how we get more people into the trades, but also how we actually get a more diverse workforce going into the construction industry. And then also how can we build out more minority contractors? more individuals going to engineering and architecture and business, and even business owners within this industry altogether.
So Lance, thank you so much for that. I feel like workforce development is extremely comprehensive. And I do feel like personally, it's one of those buzzwords we hear a lot in local politics. It's one of those buzzwords we hear a lot in local community meetings when developers want to come in and say, hey, we want to build here. It'll be great for workforce and we can build up the local workforce. And so I've always had a peak interest in it, but I also felt like it had so much attention on it. And it's so vast. And then you and I were having a conversation a couple weeks ago about how Pittsburgh prides itself on being this blue collar town. We see it, we love it, we love that identity. No one's trying to take it from Pittsburgh. And then at the same time, we've seen a lot of our vocational schools kind of closed down over the years, not really be resurrected. I don't think we have all 16 of those trades that you're talking about in the region. And so I'm curious about what does future workforce need to look like in order to meet the city's vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we kind of continue to bring it along when I feel like that strong identity, of course, has shifted into meds and eds, but how do we keep the identity of blue collar? How do we keep the identity of the Conley Vocational School in the Hill District? How do we keep those identities and how do we bring that into forward? What does the workforce need to look like to meet the city's 2050 vision?
Right. No, thank you. You know, it's funny. It just didn't happen here in Pittsburgh. It happened across the U.S. from East Coast to the West Coast. Maybe going in the late 90s to the early 2000s, there was a big disinvestment in VOTEC schools. You know, one time you mentioned about the VOTEC schools, Pittsburgh, we had 3 VOTEC schools. Everybody's probably familiar with Connolly Trade. We had South VOTEC, and then we had Washington Education Center down on Butler Street. So one time we had 3 full-blown VOTEC schools. Due to, I don't know, it was either on the state or federal funding that was disinvested, but now the trades are breathing life back into the Pittsburgh Public Schools. As of right now, the Carpenters has a program at Carrick and Westinghouse, and the Steam Fitters is at Alderdice. Now, of course, that's only 2 of the 16 trades, but it is picking up momentum. So it's funny how I think over the years the trades maybe got kind of a bad rep, that it wasn't everybody was pushing higher education. But people don't realize, you know, what can you make in the union trades? How can you provide for yourself, prevailing wages, sustain your family? And one thing I always say about the trades is trades can't be replaced by artificial intelligence. It's essential. I think we take it for granted because every time you turn on your light, that's a trade. You flush the toilet, that's a trade. You go across our bridges that's always been worked on, or any street, that's a trade. So I think we're starting to realize how valuable the trades are, that it is essential for our economy and for Western Pennsylvania.
I love that. I think that is also like a stark reminder, right? Where we're oversaturated with so much AI. And the fight now is to protect people from AI environmentally, right? Forget that it's infiltrated all spaces, our ability maybe to be a little bit creative, our ability to kind of think on our own, which is cool. I'm not going to lie. I use ChatGPT every now and then.
We all use it. Yep.
We all use it to propel our thinking forward. But there are just some things that require hand-to-hand touch, some brain power, some thought, some creative thinking, some competence, some human level competence. And I love that that was a reminder of that. And I think you're right. At some point along the line, trade did get a bad rap. And my nephew is currently in trade. He's a pipe fitter, and I love it. I love the life that he's building for himself. He's sustaining himself out in Virginia Beach, and he is learning constantly. And I feel like that level of sustainability and that level of certainty and consistency can be really good for a young person just trying to make their way through life. And I think we should really breathe some life back into the trades. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it all starts with the marketing. You know, just once again, we just need like a mass. I think we need like a 2000. I always say this: we need like a massive 2025 Rosie Riveter campaign. During World War II, there's a workforce shortage. Who stepped in to save the day? Women and minorities. Is how you actually kind of promote the opportunities in the trades. And as you mentioned, ChatGPT, right, can't build anything at one of the hospitals or at the universities. It can't be outsourced. So it does have to be done by human hands. So there is a level of job security. We take things for granted. Everybody goes to Kennywood Amusement Park. Well, who maintains the roller coaster?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody rides the Steel Phantom. That was done by the ironworkers. So something like that, we just take it for granted that, yeah, the trades actually provide entertainment. When you go to the park, that's a trade. You go to the stadium, that's a trade.
Right.
Yeah.
And not to mention that, I don't know if you all have been paying attention, but AI needs electricians. AI needs HVAC people. So all of these data centers that are being built all over the United States, they can't do it without trades. So when we're talking about Pittsburgh 2050, and we're also talking about AI coming to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh becoming a tech hub. So AI is coming to Pittsburgh. In addition to that, we're going to need tradesmen. So I think I think we need to ask ourselves the question, if we're planning for Pittsburgh 2050, how are we planning for a future that is not, pitting these two industries against each other, but is actually looking at them as essential for one another to exist?
Correct. Yeah, one is dependent upon the other.
Mm-hmm.
Without AI, without the data centers, they need the skilled workforce. And then, of course, the skilled workforce need the data centers for just constant employment. Same thing for our hospitals or universities. Every major commercial building needs a skilled trade either to build it, but also just to maintain it as well. And I think that as we have more and more marketing and the word gets around, maybe a few years ago, the schools weren't really interested by hearing about the trades, but due to a lot of things on TV, like you said, you hear the word about workforce. Schools and other programs right now, they're willing to hear about the trades. But then when you hear about the trade, but also the income, as always, everyone reacts like, oh, I didn't know they made that kind of money. Or several of the trades, you actually earn college credits at CCAC. Once again, I didn't know that I can become an iron worker and I take classes while I'm training at CCAC. Same thing with the carpenters, sheet metal worker, steam fitter. They actually earn college credits. So now I can have a trade along with an associate's degree and combine those two. Now we're talking about career opportunities. Just because you start up as a carpenter doesn't mean you have to retire as a carpenter. You can start your own business one day. You can move on to a foreman or superintendent. You can actually start your own material supplier company. There's so many things you can do with this industry. Just the first hurdle is giving everybody the exposure.
I think something that you said was going to lead right into my next question around evolution, right? You can start off as a carpenter, you can become a business person, you can move into materials. And I'm also thinking from my environmental brain and the comprehensive plan perspective is, how can we lean on the trades to carry the torch for sustainability, right? There's a lot of continuous learning, but then we're also moving towards healthier living, resilient neighborhoods, resilient cities. And so is there a connection between sustainable practices and trades right now as you're looking to be greener or more green or move towards that resilient? Can we lean on trades to help to kind of be the voice for our, even in this comprehensive plan, to say there are sustainable practices? We can help you activate resilient cities. Is that a thing? Can you all be a torch for sustainability?
Yes. In fact, where did we meet? We met at GBA, Green Building Alliance. So we were partnering with them. Like I said, how can you do more green projects? Also, how you can reduce lower carbon footprint? Some of the materials, now there's some other individuals in my team who do more work on this area, but the things such as concrete, right? It has a high carbon footprint. Now they're trying to find ways to have a less carbon footprint. Some of these buildings may have a green, like a green certified when they build out the buildings.
LEED certification.
LEED certification. Sorry. Once again, this is my expertise.
No.
But there's definitely things they're working on. And there's another thing where, say, for example, Pittsburgh has a lot of vacant schools or historic churches. Last thing we want to do is demolish those buildings. But what can we do between the skilled trades and the architect firms to kind of repurpose these buildings? Because once again, you don't want to, lose that history, but then also have the carbon footprint of doing the demolition. So something like that, you got to think of how many churches, how many vacant schools that's going to be heavily relied on the masonry and bricklayers to, like you said, to revamp and bring back these buildings. We do have some really good examples of some buildings that might have been vacant for years who've been restored. But once again, we need to find ways on how to collaborate to bring these back and then do a workforce. So therefore, we can employ the men and women from Pittsburgh and the surrounding communities into these projects and find a prevailing career path.
I love that. I am also curious about, you started to talk about this a little bit. I'm curious about what it would be successful for you when you have public-private partnerships. Like, what does it look like when it's done well? And then I think in addition to that, how do we bring more young people, women, and people of color into these fields to reflect the future that Pittsburgh wants to build? I think, I hear you say we got to get into the schools, we got to do these things. So what are successful public-private partnerships to the MBA? And how do we get more marginalized folks to the trades? In addition to exposure and marketing, those kinds of things.
Multiple examples. There's some pre-apprenticeship programs that have been around for quite some time. There is an introduction to the construction trades over at the Energy Innovation Center. There is through the A. Philip Randolph, you have the breaking the chains of poverty down on Stanwyck Street. You have Trade Institute of Pittsburgh. And there's several other kind of up and coming pre-apprenticeship programs in this area that can actually help men and women get these skills or get the awareness to go into the trades. But the thing is, how can we help put those programs on steroids? I always like to call it. 2, have a better relationship with Pittsburgh Public Schools and other school districts. And I know that sometimes the schools are so busy, they don't have the resources to really kind of put counselors into another direction. So I am always aware that the schools, sometimes they're just overworked, right? But what can we do to kind of actually help make that relationship a little bit easier, to build out that rapport, to expose their students? It could be anything working with our reentry programs, right? I'm having a few conversations with Penn State, with the Department of Corrections. Could they be a kind of a program where individuals are incarcerated, they actually start getting some skills, so therefore they can go into the trades? There's a program called Helmets to Hard Hats for veterans. Once again, creating that pathway. And actually, I'm really kind of excited. We did a collaboration with the Housing Authority. City of Pittsburgh Housing Authority has a cyber bus called WOW, Workforce on Wheels. That it's a passenger van that actually have laptops that they can actually showcase opportunities for different career opportunities. And we're glad to partner with them. And then when they take this mobile work van out on the public, we can showcase opportunities in the union trades. So once again, it's just that marketing, addressing, and then the second thing would be addressing some of the hurdles. I just have to be honest that there's 16 trades. Of the 16 trades, 11 have an aptitude test. With that aptitude test, math is the next hurdle. There's data just showing from school districts and other areas and other schools that math is the hurdle. So you imagine if I didn't have that math at the age of 18, how would I look when I'm 25 or 30 when I try to go into the trades, or I'm gonna need a refresher. Now there are programs like CCAC and Literacy Pittsburgh has a math prep course, but we still need to find more solutions because math is the next hurdle once someone's been exposed to the trades.
Wow.
I think that has a lot to, I think a lot of times the lost piece of the puzzle that's missing is really targeting parents and helping parents to understand the pathway. Because I know over the years in the Brown Mamas community, there's been a lot of talks about parents wanting to get their kids into the trades, understanding that the trades is a real pathway, but not a lot of talk about literacy, not a lot of talk about the need for math, not a lot of talk about some of those barriers that you said exist. So I'm just wondering, how can we do a better job helping parents to understand? Because the bottom line is, if we do this work with parents, it's work we don't have to do in the schools. It's work we don't have to do in the community, because the parents will prepare the kids to go into the trade. So how do we focus more on, how do we get this information more out to parents and help them understand the pathway?
Yeah.
This podcast is a step in the right direction, right? Because you'll be surprised whenever I talk to someone about the trades and I say there's an aptitude test, the normal response is, oh, I didn't know there was an exam.
Right.
One of the things I'm finding is sometimes when I go to individuals who's in education and I tell them about my position, the response I hear often is, oh, that's great that you're doing workforce, because not everyone's meant to go to college. When you make that statement, you're almost kind of undercutting the trades.
Right.
It's almost saying that, oh, well, you're not smart enough for college, so here's the trades as a runner-up. It wasn't meant with intentions, But imagine if a young adult was standing beside that person when they say that, right? How will they feel?
Right.
And the fact that when a person made that statement, they never went to a chill water plant. They never went to a data center. If they see how complex the construction is, they would never make that statement.
Right.
But when you go to the hospital or you go to the airport, right, everything's already completed. You don't see what's behind the walls. So therefore, you don't see how complex it is and how much, let's say, analytical skills and critical thinking is required to complete these projects.
Mhm.
So it's changing the mindset of the public and the perception of commercial construction of how complex and technical it is.
I agree 100%. And I think that is very, very real, that people look at the trades as like a step down. But I have my oldest son, he's very skilled with his hands.
Mhm.
And when I started noticing how skilled he was with his hands and how unskilled I am with
Right.
my hands, and not even with my hands, just with my mind, like he walks into a room and he sees what's behind the wall. I'm looking at the paint. He's looking at the construction behind the wall. And I
Right.
think we do have to start to value. I think it's all about the way we teach our kids, right? Starting to value different ways of learning and understanding that it takes all of these pieces to make the whole puzzle. So thank you for
Yeah.
that information.
That's why I was really grateful to be at Green Building Alliance's event. Even though I'm a former employee, I am just a staunch fan of people who work in the built environment, architects, your trades, people who work in green buildings, who work, to make sure that we have sustainable materials. They are also helping to build the vitality, the resilience, the sustainability of these neighborhoods. So their input is equally as important than the developers, as the developers and the residents. And so, they see behind the walls, they see the materials, they know the longevity and the lifespan. And so I'm curious where Master Builders Association and the comprehensive plan meet, right? If you were in a meeting, you got, and you could say, hey guys, this is a really great opportunity for MBA to assist the comprehensive plan or assist Pittsburgh in moving to 2050. Where do they meet, and how can you amplify the voices of the members? You have a large membership in Southwestern PA. How can your voices amplify the comp plan? Where do you both meet?
Whenever you need me, just call me. Now, I'm honestly, it's like you can't do this by sitting behind a desk. You actually have to be out in the public. You actually have to meet people in person, to go to community events and talk about the trades. And then from there, you can follow with different organizations and community groups and say, look, here is when they have an information session for whichever the particular trade is. This is how to apply. Because remember, 16 different unions, right? That's 16 different applications, and 16 unions have different enrollment dates. So you need to know when and how to apply to each of those trades. Because say, for example, the carpenters may take applicants. The carpenters and laborers may take applicants year round, but then maybe the steam fitters, electricians, or operating engineers may do it once or twice a year. So how do we get that information to the public? Make sure that those men and women are actually ready for that exam, and make sure that they're prepared the best, like I said, so they can actually take advantage of the opportunity. And maybe they might not feel comfortable yet going directly to the trades. So how do we direct them to one of the pre-apprenticeship programs? So they think the thing is, anything I can do to partner, strengthen with Pittsburgh 2025, 2050, as far as we're getting the information out, making sure everyone's fully aware of how and when to apply. And then another thing I like to talk about too is that if you do get into trades, let's talk a little bit about financial literacy. I know I'm going on off the side, but I've seen so many times a young apprentice get into the trades, and next month they show up with a brand new pickup truck. Right? But it's like, now you just put yourself in $1,000, $1,200 car note. Like, you know what? Before you buy that toy, you actually have a skill set that's so vital. How many vacant properties do you see in your neighborhood? If you have the skill set, you can buy that vacant house in Homewood, or wherever it can be, East Liberty, wherever you want, Barfield, wherever it can be, Sheridan. You can buy that vacant house, fix it up, move in one. Now you got equity. Now, what do you do with that equity, right? Or if you buy that duplex, you can live in one unit, rent out the other one. What do you do with that equity? Now you can take your extra money, right, and put into an investment or whole life insurance policy. So maybe 10 years down the road, when you're ready to start your own business, what do you have? You have collateral, right, to start your own business. So one thing I talk about is, how can you take your trade and how can you multiply it? You can go from a carpenter to becoming a general contractor, a specialty contractor, within a matter of period of time as you move up the ranks. You start as a carpenter, you move on to a foreman or superintendent, become an estimator. Now, after maybe 8 years in the game, you're ready to start your own company. But let's make sure we give everybody the blueprint on how you can multiply that. Don't go into the trades and start going shopping, which I've seen it a lot. If you're 20 in your early 20s making 50, 60,000 starting off, starting about 40,000 going to 50, you can burn that money pretty quick. But if someone gave you some guidance on how to invest and then how to multiply it, by 10 years from now, you can be in an extremely comfortable position.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm getting a lot from this in that I think the comprehensive plan can promote, economic vitality by reinvesting, I think a stable place for the trades, right? Where you can dole out partnerships, where you can bring in some help for financial assistance so we can get over some of those hurdles, where people can come to you, where people can say, okay, there is a space. And I know MBA has a space, but I mean, something that is invested in the city. I hear opportunities for repurposing of vacant homes and vacant spaces that require a leaning on the trades and expertise. I hear that not only can we repurpose, but we can prepare for the future as AI plans to descend on almost every state, almost every place in the nation. How do we prepare people for that? And so there's like a really awesome opportunity to bring a lot of city resources and communication to bridge the gap between, I think, what is going to be essential forever, and I think the vitality of the city, right? And so how do we further lean on these experts to kind of carry us through sustainably and equitably to the future? I think that is a really good space for the MBA to be, and a good reminder that trades have been carrying us for a really, really long time, Correct.
And like you just said, that's how do you stabilize a community, right? By acquisition.
Yeah.
So with that skilled trade, as I said before, AI can't replace it. And once again, sometimes we take it for granted. Every time you go down the street, you see that vacant house or that vacant building, and everybody thinks, oh, I would love to be able to buy that, but I don't know how to repair it, or I don't have the resources or the ability, right? It's not as much as the funding as sometimes just having the skilled workforce.
Yeah.
So that's something we need to really kind of look on how we can actually, like you said, take that skill. And then the most important thing is that you're providing for yourself, you're providing for your family, and being some nice strategic moves, you can really change the trajectory for your household.
Well, any questions, any final thoughts from you, Muffy, before we get out of here? I feel like I like talking to Lance, and I'm like, everybody just connect with Lance, get all the trades in your schools, at your community meetings, reach out to them. I think he is very accessible and ready and willing to make sure the trades is out there and market it as successfully as he can.
Absolutely.
Final note, once again, when this podcast airs, if anyone who's watching this definitely wants to hear more about the trades, please reach out. I'll be more than happy to come out, give out information, because once again, just the exposure is the first hurdle. If I said someone becoming a steam fitter or iron worker, operating engineer, most people will say, well, what's that? So how can you be something that you don't even know they even exist?
Right. How can we reach you, Lance? Where can people find you at? What's your email, website? How do you want people to reach you?
My email address is lance@mbawpa.org. Office phone number is 412-922-3912. And we also have a webpage called buildwpa.org. That's kind of a one-stop shop information for about the trades. And like I said, I'd be more than happy to come out, collaborate, showcase the trades, working with youth groups. Love to take them out to one of the training centers so the little ones can get the exposure, from the little ones to adults. And then also find ways to partner with any kind of organization so we can address the hurdles.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lance. In addition to that, don't forget we have 2 workshops this month. Make sure you click the link at the bottom. We have 2 public workshops this month, October 22nd, October 23rd. We hope to see you there in person. Once again, Lance, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Pittsburgh 2050 and how the trades are going to help carry us through to a sustainable future. We really, really appreciate you. And Muffy, as always, you give me energy. Thank you so much. And we'll see everyone back here at 12 p.m. next Tuesday.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Lance.
Thanks, Lance.
Thank you. Take care.